Let's paint a picture. It's Wednesday night, or Thursday night before Survivor Nicaragua, and you're excited to see the newest episode. You can't wait to see who will get voted out next. Your anticipation is through the roof. And then you see this.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Yeah, so I'm guessing there's a pretty high likelihood that you immediately changed the channel because you decided that that night's episode wasn't worth your time. I mean, no one's going home tonight, so who cares? But is that fair? Is there more to these episodes than what appears on the surface? Let's dig a little deeper and see what gold we can find. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, in the first half of Survivor's existence, it was fairly common for seasons to contain an episode about halfway through that served as a recap for the events of the season up to that point, and also included some extra scenes not shown in the original episodes. Fans tend to look down on these episodes. If you look at the Nielsen ratings or IMDb scores for these episodes, they are consistently the lowest rated episodes of their respective seasons. And I totally get it. These episodes are filler in its purest form. They were usually done as a way to either extend the season for more episodes, to work around a holiday like Thanksgiving, or to fill the slot for NCAA basketball tournaments. You can skip these and not miss anything important for the season storyline. But I think you should check them out anyway if you've never watched them. Some recap episodes are definitely better than others, but there is some great content locked away in these that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. So let's go through each of these episodes and go over what you're missing by ignoring them. I won't go over everything that's new in these episodes, just the stuff I find the most interesting. Alright, let's begin. The first season to have a recap episode was Season 2, The Australian Outback. A common criticism of this season is its unnecessarily long length. Not only is it the only Survivor season to go for 42 days, but at 17 episodes, including the recap, reunion, and Back from the Outback special, it is easily the longest season to watch. And even though I still love this season, it is pretty draining. So I totally understand wanting to shave off time wherever you can, especially on rewatches. But what happens in this episode to justify its existence? Well, Colby keeps everyone up on the first night due to his snoring. Riveting. Okay, what else? Mitchell and Kel talk about who to potentially vote off first. Alright. Kucha finds some running water to act as a makeshift jacuzzi after losing the episode 2 reward challenge. Actually, I like this scene, mostly because of Roger, the original wholesome king.
Hold on, I'm losing my trunks here. I'm losing my trunks.
Now who would have thought Roger would be the first one?
I'll just stay here.
Oh, there's an additional scene of Keith and Mad Dog telling Kel that Amber, Jerry, and Tina went through his bag looking for beef jerky. I actually wish they kept this in, since it adds more to that whole storyline, which I always found super interesting. And it humanizes Kel. Plus, it gave us more Mad Dog, which I will always gladly accept. Probably the most well-known yet elusive scene in this episode is Jerry singing Criminal by Fiona Apple on night 6. Though I do feel like Jerry got unfairly dunked on too much this season, I do think this scene is pretty funny. Though unfortunately, due to licensing, the only way you're gonna see it now is the original print run of the Australian Outback DVD. Let's see, Varner gets mad at Scoopin for going fishing without him and tries to use that as leverage to turn the tribe against him.
Everybody should get a turn. This is not first person to wake gets in the boat. Wake somebody up and say, I'm going fishing, did you want to come? That's so easy to do. If Jeff said no, then it's on him. But no, right away the decision is made. Mike is up, he's going, and they just got in the boat and left. That cannot happen. It just can't happen.
Honestly, that's some pretty good social manipulation on his part, but I do see why this was cut. Since Scoopin ended up being medevac, anything that could have potentially led to him being voted off wasn't really necessary. One night at Ogakor, Tina had everyone go around and say something positive about each other, which helped quell the tensions between Keith and Jerry, at least for a while. In short, I think this was a decent episode. Future controversies notwithstanding, I still love this cast, so I'll always enjoy seeing more of them. But I can say you're not really missing anything essential in this one, but it's an okay watch. Maybe the next one will be better. First off, for Africa's recap episode, there's a scene of Diane worried that a lion is in their presence while trying to get water. A good fear to have, but Tom and Clarence seem annoyed with her more than anything.
Diane is a crybaby titty sucker. She's weak. I knew that coming into the game. I knew she'd be weak.
Given that she was the first boot, and they usually like to dunk on the first boots as much as possible, you'd think they would have kept this in. But I'm guessing this scene was cut to make more time for Beingate. Yeah. Things don't end there for Clarence, as later, the rest of Boron make fun of him for putting on war paint. Things are getting a little awkward here, so let's switch to something funny. Before the episode 2 immunity challenge, Frank begins banging a pair of deer antlers together that he brought as his luxury item as a way to psych himself up for the challenge, I guess? I don't know, Frank's an interesting guy. There's actually a really sweet scene where Linda apologizes to Lindsay for acting all crazy earlier in the day. It wasn't enough to save her this round, but it was big of her to realize that she was out of line and try to make amends. After the swap, Big Tom and Brandon have a discussion about Brandon being gay. Now, it would be easy to accuse Tom of being homophobic here, but I personally don't see it that way. Him and Brandon come from different walks of life, and I think Tom was just being genuinely curious.
But, you know, with Big T, you can't get mad about anything he says, because he says it with a smile, and I mean, he's very funny.
That's his life, and I guess if that's the way you want to live it, have it. But it sure ain't mine.
Plus, they also talked about all the things they have in common, and seem to enjoy each other's company, especially in direct contrast to Brandon and Frank, who really did not like each other. Finally, before the episode 5 reward challenge, Frank has everyone do an army march for practice, which is so on brand for Frank, I'm surprised they didn't keep it in the actual episode. I definitely prefer the Australia episode over this one. While the individual moments added to this episode were more intriguing, there's also a little bit of ickiness that makes it hard to watch in some spots, so I think you can safely skip this one. Marquesas' recap episode is a definite improvement from Africa's. First of all, apparently the general brought a voodoo doll as a luxury item, and Rotu wrote Mata'amu's name on it and stabbed it before the first immunity challenge. That's unique. I guess it worked since they won, but I definitely didn't expect that from the general of all people. After losing the episode 3 reward challenge, Hunter decides to take Mata'amu on a hike to look for food, which irritates the rest of the tribe, and probably in part contributed to his blindside.
Hunter, he's just up and always looking busy, and the thing is, we ain't get put on this island to come and exert ourselves in this tropical heat. Damn all this other work. We need energy to get those damn challenges.
In easily my favorite news scene of the episode, after the swap, Sean introduces their new Rotu tribe mates to the radio program. I love the radio program bits. It's one of my favorite parts of the pre-merge of Marquesas, so it's always great to see more of it.
Girl, you know you
No, que mi amigo está con tu
On day 16, Kathy and Gina have a nice conversation about Gina's dream job, which makes her impending elimination this round all the more tragic. Finally, before John's blindside, there's a scene of Vesepia apologizing to Sean for voting out Boston Rob the prior round, and assuring her allegiance to his and Kathy's side. I really wish they kept this in, as V is pretty downplayed this episode, and it would have been nice to see the winner more actively involved in the biggest move of the season. All in all, this one's not bad. I'd gladly watch this one over the Africa one, as there's no potential ickiness. If you like this season, I definitely say give it a watch. If you're not the biggest fan, I wouldn't say you're missing anything crucial, but I'll let you be the judge. Thailand has some new stuff, but surprise surprise, little if any of it is pleasant or even really that interesting. Chewigon makes fun of Ted for shaving his head. If that doesn't set the tone for this one, I don't know what will. Immediately following that up is one of the most awkward scenes in the history of the show given the future events that transpire. Days before the infamous Ted and Gandia incident, there's an extra scene of Ted pretending to be a photographer taking pictures of Gandia as she poses.
I see it. Working.
Yeah, I don't think I need to tell you why this scene is a yikes, especially since this episode aired way after the Grindgate one. Calling this tone deaf is an understatement. Okay, there is one funny scene in this thing. Jake getting frustrated at their crappy canoe did make me chuckle, mainly because it's so strange to see Jake get that mad at something, as he's normally a pretty chill dude. And we immediately follow that up with Clay staring at and talking about Aaron's ass. Lovely. After that display, the castaways receive some snorkeling gear at Tree Mail, and Brian and Jake go spearfishing. I guess one neat thing about this is that Brian and Jake end up being the ones who last the longest in the episode 8 immunity challenge, which involved them holding their breath underwater using a snorkel. And that's it. Aside from one decently funny scene, there is literally nothing of value here. Easily skippable, though considering it was Survivor Thailand, I don't know what I was expecting. Kicking off the Amazons recap episode, we have the women being terrified of the various wildlife crawling around at night. You'd think they would have kept this in just to hammer in how dangerous the Amazon can be, like with showing the lions circling around the camp at night in Africa, but I guess they needed to make room for more scenes of the girls bathing. Well, Christy gets a small moment of her successfully catching a fish. Given how much the show loved her, I'm surprised this one didn't make it in. If you're wondering where the men are, well, there's a scene after the merge where Rob and Heidi create a calendar chronicling the events of the game up to that point, and Rob talks about how hot Heidi is. Big shock. On night 23, Dave tries to get in Christy's good graces by telling her how much he appreciates her and then teaching her how to swing dance. It doesn't really work, but Christy at least seemed amused.
If you really appreciate me, maybe you could show that a little bit throughout the game instead of like day before you think you're gonna get voted off.
And that's all she wrote. I'd say this one was a pretty decent showing for the women, but a lackluster one for the men. If you're a big Christy fan, you'll like it, else it's one you can probably skip. It's not bad, just uneventful. If you're already getting tired of these, don't worry, because next up is easily the best episode we'll be talking about today. The recap episode of Survivor All-Stars is actually really fun, and as sad as it may sound, is easily one of the best episodes of the season. All-Stars is notably a very dark season for many reasons, but this episode is just fun. This season is at its best when the castaways you fell in love with in the first 7 seasons just get to hang out and play off each other. And this episode has a lot of that. Easily the best part of this episode, and the best scene to come from any of these recap episodes, is, of course, Shapira's mock tribal council. After the first immunity challenge, Shapira decided to have a little fun and do a mock tribal council, where they all pretended to be the members of Saboga. Boston Rob was Ethan, Big Tom was Rupert, Alicia was Jerry, Amber was Tina, and Sue pulled double duty as Rudy and Jenna. Finally, Rob Sesternino takes on the role of Jeff Probst. This scene is just hilarious, and the poster child for the gold you could potentially miss by ignoring these episodes.
I just want to pour some hot chocolate over some hot guy's body.
I didn't touch your spear, Rupert. I never touched your
Rudy!
Lord, please forgive me for my language that I am about to use right now. But Miss Jerry Manthe, I am voting for you. You were a bitch the first time on Survivor Australia, and 3 years ain't done you any good. You're still a bitch. My vote is for Jerry.
Absolutely iconic. Later, there's a pretty funny montage of various players from Shapira not being able to understand Big Tom.
Hey, we ain't got a good mate among us.
You guys get that?
No idea.
Sandy will eat a big gob, then want to come up there and make a big gob of love, and I'll tell her to go eat
Yeah,
her.
we need the translator on that one. That was just a little too much.
I have no clue what you just said. All I heard was gob of love.
One notable thing about this episode is that they completely omit the Richard Sue incident, which isn't terribly surprising, but worth mentioning. But yeah, I will be very surprised if another of these recap episodes ends up being better than this one. It has pretty much everything you could want out of one of these. Plus, it's a nice palate cleanser after a string of ugliness this season. Also, this is the only recap episode to not be on its season's DVD. However, it is included as a special feature on the Micronesia DVD. So bizarre. Exile Island, let's be honest, you're here mostly for the Cut Kasaya content. So let's just move right on to that. We begin with 2 Bruce moments, which is fine by me. On the first night, he was unable to sleep and so chose to do his katas, which Shane seems to respect. Though that respect doesn't last long, as on night 3, Bruce washes his hands with the tribe's drinking water, which greatly annoys Shane. On night 7, the tribe yells at each other over losing the reward challenge that day, and showcases Aris being a leader and trying to quell the tensions on the tribe, which I think would have been a great scene to keep for his winning story, but I digress.
I think that a lot of the people in this tribe are acting very immaturely. I've played team sports my whole life, and this is the worst team I've ever been a part of.
The next day, they eat a snake, and Courtney thanks the snake for giving its life for them. Textbook Courtney. On night 8, Shane laments missing his son Boston's birthday to be on the show, so the tribe sings happy birthday to celebrate. Honestly, a really sweet scene. I always thought his relationship with his son was super wholesome. Alright, enough niceness. On day 12, Danielle complains about Bobby being lazy and only getting up to eat and not properly tending to the fire, just to make it absolutely clear that they really did not like each other.
Danielle apparently, in her
fatigued and dumb state, apparently thought I was serious. She apparently thought I really couldn't figure out that I was supposed to be putting the stick on the fire. She apparently thought I was serious. Just like completely over her head. Like all this stuff is just like, just gone.
Later that day, Courtney complains about Shane using the women's soap because she wanted the men and women to use different soaps. Understandable, but as you can imagine, this irritates Shane.
We're out here, we're like sharing everything. Courtney was like, this is the girl soap, you know what I mean? And what I wanted to do is look at her and go, that's the lunatics soap.
Outside of Kasaya, we have Misty trying and failing to convince her original Bayonetta tribe mates that she found the idol, and later all of them sing a song together in Spanish. Given how early the swap was, I definitely understand why these were cut, as pretty much none of the relationships formed in the first round mattered. Finally, in the only Lamina scene worth mentioning, Sally opens up to Austin about her strained relationship with her parents, which is a nice moment, but given that they were the first two members of the jury, and Sally would have been voted out anyway had she not been sent to exile, I get why it was deemed unnecessary. And that's pretty much it. No shocker that all the entertaining moments in this episode come from Kasaya. So if you love them, you'll probably really enjoy this episode. So yeah, this one gets my recommendation, a pretty solid recap. Cook Islands actually has a fair amount of new stuff. I know how much you all love Adam and Candace from Raro Tribe, so here's a scene on day 2 of the two lovebirds trying to catch fish and losing their boat. Electric. Let's see, Billy tries to set up 2 alliances, one with JP and one with Christina and Cecilia. Not that these really went anywhere, but it does show that Billy was trying to play the game.
I was trying to play both sides of the fence. But if you rely on just one alliance, you're not gonna make it.
So Billy Garcia for Survivor 50, right? After losing the first immunity, Rebecca talks about how disappointed she was in losing the challenge and how it not only affects her, but the whole black community. While it makes sense for the season, I get why this scene was cut. Since Rebecca did not win, this moment would have propped her up as a major contender early on, which the show clearly did not want to do. Moving on, we have Yule hiding all traces of him finding the idol on Exile, which directly translates into a funny montage of Penner, Candace, and Adam trying and failing to find it. I know all of you are huge Raro fans, so here's a string of extra scenes just for you. In what clearly plants the seeds for her future appearances, we have a montage of Parvati flirting with and catching the attention of all the guys on post-swap Raro.
So I want to get in tight with all the guys. I haven't even begun to work my feminine ways. The dating game, the game of survival, it's all the same.
On night 10, Stephanie serenades her tribe with a rendition of Amazing Grace, which gets a nice applause. Before JP's blindside, Rebecca tried to get Nate on board, but of course, he was vehemently against it. Finally, after winning the episode 5 reward, there's a scene of them celebrating that night with the wine they won. And since Stephanie doesn't really drink, it doesn't take much for her to get blasted. Okay, that's enough Raro for one lifetime. On I2, Ozzy and Cowboy get annoyed at the women for eating a bunch of fish despite not helping at all to catch them, which is so on brand for Ozzy, it hurts. So, in short, if you really like Raro, you'll... Sorry, I can't even say that with a straight face. Nobody likes Raro. Despite having some of the most new content of any of these episodes, due to how much focus is placed on Raro, you can safely skip this one. China starts off with 2 additional scenes in between the castaways arriving in Shanghai and the Buddhist temple in the first episode. First, they have to climb up a comically long set of stairs. Once they get to the top, the women are given shawls to cover up their cleavage.
I was like looking at my outfit. I was uncomfortable and I was embarrassed. It's definitely not appropriate for a temple.
There's a pretty funny montage of Jean Robert being a guinea pig of sorts, trying out all kinds of foods to see if they're edible and getting sick as a result. One common theme with this season is just how much conflict there was between everyone, so it's no surprise that a lot of it ended up being cut from the actual episodes. Let's see, James gets mad at Aaron for napping in the boat instead of fishing, disparaging him for not being a proper leader, which is pretty humorous from Todd's perspective since he was also there but not getting the blame.
And I'm like thinking he's yelling at me at first. I looked over him and he's like, "You just a flight attendant. I'm talking about him, our leader." And I was like, okay.
Leslie accidentally throws away some bait that James was using to fish, which of course irritates him. Later, Todd argues with Jean Robert about the episode 3 immunity, under the impression that he's talking shit about him for flubbing the puzzle.
I wanted to put him in his place and let him realize, yeah, I have a very, very strong opinion and I'm going to knock you down if I have to.
Definitely understand why this one was cut. as it makes Todd look super defensive and confrontational. In another villainous Todd moment, after the swap, but before the episode 6 immunity, Todd gives Frosty an ultimatum to try his hardest to win the challenge, lest he go home. Okay, that's enough conflict for now. Let's showcase a couple lighter moments. First, there's a hilarious scene of Todd and Courtney doing impressions of some of the other players.
You're like, over on the other side over there, we wasn't eating anything.
There was no notice.
There was okay.
We're Team Abercrombie and Fitch. And you guys are all like team, what's left.
We get ourselves some buds. I do some karate. I just don't care.
Love it. I also love a good drunk scene, and the merge has a fun one of the players singing Into the Night and Todd passing out in the middle of the woods. And that's the end of pleasantness, as we conclude with James again complaining about people being lazy, and then being kind of a dick to PG, refusing to accept her apology after their argument regarding losing the episode 9 reward.
James, I'm sorry for taking time, alright?
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Don't politic.
I'm not politicking, I'm just apologizing, so you can accept it or not, but I really am sorry.
Please stop messing with me and go sit down somewhere else.
Yeah, this episode definitely does not make James look good, that's for sure. But aside from that, this was a fun one, assuming you're okay with people arguing in pretty much every scene. Gabon's recap episode starts in a really unique way. They actually show off some of the castaways' audition tapes. I love seeing stuff like this.
Dogs rule, people suck.
You know what, Randy? Based. Though I think my favorite might be Bob's. Him complaining about school lunches in front of the lunch ladies made me holler, I will admit.
In order to win in Survivor, one of the things you have to do is be able to eat all that weird stuff, that real crap. And I'd like to just thank these girls here in the cafeteria at Rome High School. For over 20 years, they've been serving me real crap. And I think
Entering the show proper, Randy and Maddie get attacked by leeches when trying to fish in the early days of Fawn. Continuing with Randy and Maddie, they each get a nice character moment early on. Firstly, Maddie gets everyone on Fawn to sing a song for his girlfriend. Then, in a rare vulnerable moment, Randy has a heart-to-heart with Maddie where he opens up about his past and the death of his beloved dog.
My dog Johnson meant more to me than any of these people will. He's been dead 5 years, and I miss him to this day. As soon as I get back home, I'm gonna get a new one and tell him all about being here.
I actually wish they kept this in, as it humanizes Randy and shows that he's not 100% a grump, just 99% a grump. Bob gets another scene of him building stuff for Coda, which you think they would have kept in for his winter story, but whatever. If you're a big fan of Corinne being Corinne, then you're in luck, because there is a lot of her in this episode. First, she jokes that Sugar won't survive on Exile. Oh, how wrong she was. Later, on the episode 5 reward, Corinne complains about the people she has to share the reward with.
Unfortunately, you get these great experiences, but you have to share them with people you can't stand. I'd rather be serving up poison to these people.
Finally, after Charlie is voted out, Sugar gets a little too cocky and starts lecturing Corinne on how to play the game, which, as you can no doubt imagine, pisses her off to no end.
From a girl who is, a non-college graduate waitress who's out of work. She doesn't even have a waitress job. She lives off the kindness of others. I don't like people that live off the kindness of others. There is no honor in that.
Finally, during the credits, they show an early Coda scene where Marcus, Charlie, Ace, and even Bob skinny dip. I definitely did not expect to see that, but now I can't unsee it. All in all, if you're as big a fan of this season as I am, I think you'll really enjoy this episode. However, if you have yet to convert to being a Gabon truther, I doubt this one will change your mind. The Tocantins recap episode comes the earliest of any season, episode 6. At this point, only 5 people have been voted out, which is kinda insane, so you'd think there'd be even more time to include new scenes. And you're kinda right. Let's see, Timbira tries to catch some fish, and Debbie eats a live one, which is pretty humorous. Right after that, they try some jatoba fruit, which they do not seem to like at all. Coach and Tyson definitely get to shine this episode. Each of them get their own montage of them just being themselves, and it's just as hilarious as always.
Oh my God! Let's win! Oh God! Da dee da 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 dee da dee dum da da dee.
Who is this jackass?
Coach even challenges Brendan to a bench building contest, of which we don't even get to see the result. Really? Also, rare double confessional. Moving on to Jalapao, Taj gets a vulnerable moment where she struggles with the elements and all the bugs. As if JT's win wasn't obvious enough, we get more confessionals from Sydney, Joe, and Steven about how great a guy he is.
I think JT holds the power right now, so I'm definitely trying to get on his good side a little bit.
Right now, it's probably JT leading Jalapao. It's kind of nice to have somebody you can just let take over, and then also, you know, the spotlight isn't on you.
JT and I have formed a bond. I'm excited to be his friend. He is the likable everyman with the sweet southern drawl and the charming smile.
Finally, we conclude with an extended scene of Steven and Brendan's visit to Exile, where JT gets some competition for Steven's affections. First, Brendan finds a snake skin and bestows it to Steven, which is actually the second snake skin that was found this episode. That night, the two get close and spoon to keep warm, which is hilariously mixed with footage of two frogs, playing leapfrog.
Giggity.
Anyway, to close, outside of some fun Tyson and Coach content, this episode was just alright. I'd say probably one of the least essential of this group, but it's not bad. Alright, Samoa, let's see what you got. Are you going to give other players a chance to shine, or are you just going to have Russell hog up all the screen time again? Honestly, not really. Make no mistake, Russell gets a pretty sizable amount of content this episode, however, there's someone else who gives him a run for his money here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get all the Hance stuff out of the way first. He cuddles up with the girls on Foa Foa for warmth, and has another confessional saying that everything he's doing is strictly for the game.
It's funny how any girl at any level will cuddle with you at night because it's freezing out here. And it is very strategic. If you cuddling with them and you're rubbing their leg or their arm, they think, I got this guy. I got him where I want him. Because they think he really likes me. Let's not get rid of him because there's no way he's gonna vote me out. This is a game we're playing. You're supposed to lie, cheat, and steal. That's how it works. What I do out here, my mom's probably gonna be pretty damn embarrassed. My wife's probably gonna be pissed off.
Later, he's shown sneaking papayas on his own. Though, to be fair, a lot of people are shown doing the same thing. After the merge, he lets the chicken go that Eric and Shambo caught earlier in the day, in order to stir up chaos, and then flexes by talking to Dave in the dark while wearing his idol.
I thought it was funny that Dave was sitting there talking to me and the idol's sitting right there. All he's gotta do is look at it. But he never did.
Finally, he has a conversation with Natalie about potentially having to vote off Jason or Mick, which would have been great for Natalie's story, but who am I kidding? The editors didn't care to show Natalie's story. The only non-Russell Foa Foa moment worth mentioning is a great character moment for Jason, where he tells off John for being too rough during the Schmergen Brawl challenge, and then later regretting speaking up, fearing how it will negatively affect him, something I'm sure a lot of people can relate with.
I should not have said what I said to John, period. You know, my dad grew up in rural Mississippi, got kicked off his land by the Klan, graduated with honors from Long Beach State, and then got a PhD from Stanford. And all the while, he didn't complain. And every time that I say something like that, I feel like I let him down, because that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And I am more disappointed in myself right now than anybody else out there.
Shockingly, they actually gave us a lot of great Galoo content here. Granted, most of it from one player, but again, we'll get there. To prove Brett was there all along, there's a scene before the Eric blindside where the rest of Galoo let him in on the plan, to which he is very much against, but reluctantly goes along with it.
Obviously the decision's already been made, and you know, it's not a lot I can do. And so my plan now is basically just fly under the radar for the time being, and I think that that'll carry me through for a while, and then I'll need to step it up and start, you know, making a few decisions.
And now finally, the clear MVP of this episode is Shambo. Every other moment I have left to mention involves her. Makes sense, as Shambo was by far the most developed member of Galoo. She gets mad at Dave at the merge for not making her feel like a true ally in the Galoo majority. Continuing with the theme of Galoo not respecting her, she tries to share a vulnerable moment with Laura, but Laura clearly could not care less. Later, she confronts Monica and flatly asks her if it's still Galoo's strong. And she gets a pretty big non-answer. And you all wonder why she flipped on you. Finally, during the credits, Shambo sings Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. A little on the nose, but I'll take it. Actually, I'm surprised they kept this in, as they normally cut the castaways singing licensed songs. So yeah, if you're a big Shambo fan, you'll love this one. If not, you're probably better off skipping it, but even without Shambo, there's still some pretty good stuff here. One of the defining aspects of the early days of Nicaragua is Jimmy T's large irritation with everyone on his tribe. And there's even more of it here. Nothing really new, just more of the same. Him not being appreciated and the like.
Jimmy T's style is, look at me. I crave attention. I don't feed into that, because just like a crying child, unless their diaper needs to be changed, if you don't respond to that nonsense, then they'll stop.
On LaFleur, Nyanka condemns her tribe mates for swimming instead of building shelter, and then makes fun of Fabio for being accident-prone, which directly leads into a funny montage of Fabio hurting himself. Like, dude, I know you're playing it up, at least a little, but method acting can go too far.
Does that happen to everybody? I mean, why not just me, I don't think.
In a pretty clear foreshadowing of events to come, Nyanka and Purple Kelly are shown being miserable in the rain, particularly Purple Kelly, who, with tears in her eyes, says how much she misses home and wants to quit.
But everyone else is putting up with it. I don't understand why it's so hard for me. If I just want it to be over, they're gonna think they're just gonna think I'm like super weak.
Of course, this episode aired right before the one where they both quit, so they were very clearly trying to prepare us for it with this moment. Right after this, Benry gets a confessional saying that he wants Purple Kelly out. Sad that she gets about as much content here as she did throughout the rest of the season, but I digress. After the swap, Jane simultaneously tries to provide for the tribe while also sneaking fish for herself on the side. Next, Sash has a montage of him forming endgame alliances with everyone on his tribe, and them talking about how much they trust him. It's easy to forget that Sash was actually a major power player in the first part of the game, but he was. I'm sure all this double and triple timing won't come back to bite him in the ass later. Finally, to the merge, we get 2 additional scenes of the whole Nyanka stealing the flower debacle. First, Holly, being a mom, convinces her to apologize to the rest of the tribe. Right afterwards, the tribe tries to find the flower, but Nyanka initially forgets where she hid it, but does eventually remember. In a scene that is downright prescient in retrospect, we have a scene where Chase serenades the tribe with a song he wrote, which, if you somehow didn't know, Chase would go on to become a huge country star after the season, so it's pretty neat to see the seeds of that planted here. Finally, we have a scene I can't believe they cut. It turns out that Jane was actually crucial in getting Chase and Fabio to flip on Brenda.
Chase and Fabio grabbed me, and they're like, well, I just don't think it's a good idea to vote Brenda out. And I'm looking at him like, sucker, what have they done to you?
I genuinely am shocked that this wasn't included in the actual episode, as there it made it seem that the entire thing was Holly's plan. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one. Nicaragua has always been a guilty pleasure of mine, so I like seeing things from a different angle. And with that, we have one more to go. Before going into this, I honestly forgot that South Pacific had a recap episode. I could have sworn that Nicaragua was the last one. Maybe there is a reason for that. Well, let's see. If you know anything about this season, then you know that a small handful of men comprise most of the screen time, and that certainly doesn't change for the recap. Let's start with Cochran. He gets many more scenes of being out of his element and a pariah on Savai'i. He's asked to gut a fish, which makes him uncomfortable. Later, Ozzy makes him hold a rooster as its head is chopped off and then makes fun of him for being squeamish.
And I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it is just, I can't help but have the image burned into my mind of Cochran standing there, holding it with his eyes closed and his mouth open.
In an honestly pretty relatable scene, he shares shelter space with Keith and Whitney, and becomes a third wheel as they hog the blankets from him. And they wonder why Cochran flipped on them. Though, to be fair, earlier in the game, Whitney and Papa Bear try to help Cochran improve his social skills, but he seems more annoyed at their perceived condescension.
Papa Bear is a nut, giving me girl advice, which is like, you know, I'll take it, but I don't particularly want it.
Okay, let's see, who else is there? Well, Coach also takes up a sizable chunk of this episode, big shock. He gets mad at Michaela for using too much sugar in her coffee. You know, if I had a nickel for each time a Tocantins alum got mad at someone named Michaela for using too much sugar in their coffee, I'd have, well, you know the rest. He and the rest of Upolu talk about how weary they are of Brandon's mental state. And boy does that age well. Finally, in what is undoubtedly his most impressive feat in 3 appearances, he works overtime to flip Cochran to his side, the process of which we get to see more here. Taking a page from Philip's book, no, not that one, he comes up with a name for everyone on the tribe, named after a different Greek figure.
Without question, Ozzy is Narcissus. Whitney is Erato. Edna, I say that she is Echo. Strongest man on earth, they call him.
Hercules?
Yep.
I'm
absolutely.
Hercules?
Well, I thought that my name should be Zeus.
Despite Coach's claims that Zeus is a doting father, I seem to think Zeus ate his children. And if he views me as one of his children, as he kind of repeatedly has, I'm fearing that Coach may at some point devour me.
Finally, in what has been a running theme for this video, we get a couple extra Sophie moments that would have been great for her winter story, but that was clearly not their priority this season.
Albert's the one who's always feeling uncomfortable. He's always wanting to make a big move. And sometimes I think he just wants to make a big move just for the hell of it. You go against the 5, you go against the 6. Yeah, we're gonna throw you in the fire. We're gonna chop your head off.
I'm honestly surprised I kinda liked this one. I've always been pretty mixed on this season, but I didn't hate this recap. It's not amazing or anything, but it does have some of the most new stuff out of any of them. So that counts for something. So yeah, after South Pacific, the recap episode was officially retired, and I don't think many would miss them. As I've showcased, there are some cool unique moments hidden in these, but I can only recommend watching them to superfans who want a bit more out of the show beyond the regular fare. Most of them are fine, but aside from maybe All-Stars, I would say on rewatches, you're good to skip them. You know, what the hell, just because I can, let's go ahead and rank these real quick. Alright, from worst to best, Thailand, Amazon, Africa, Cook Islands, Tocantins, Marquesas, South Pacific, Australia, Samoa, Nicaragua, China, Exile Island, Gabon, and finally, All-Stars. Thank you for watching my video about this incredibly niche Survivor topic. I get that this is probably not something that you all would typically pay attention to, but I appreciate you giving it a chance, and that you at least had some fun with it. Catch you later. Ciao.